Hi students, welcome to the science class. In your first session, we discussed in the lesson nutrition in animals, some of the steps of the nutrition in human beings, that are in the digestion process, how the food enters, that is egestion of the food through the buccal cavity. That buccal cavity contains tooths, and also the buccal cavity has another one organ called a tongue, and also in the buccal cavity some of the glands are present. That glands secrete some juices that are also helpful for the digestion of the food. So now we are going to study what was happen after onwards the buccal cavity. So see here, after the buccal cavity the food will be enters to the food pipe or a esophagus. After buccal cavity the digested food or the grinded food enters into our food pipe. A food pipe is a pipe like structure. It starts from a neck and runs towards the stomach. Have you got understood? It is a pipe like structure, starts from our neck and runs towards our stomach. So when the food enters into the food pipe, it will be pushed downwards by the movement of the wall of the food pipe. Have you got understood? When the grinded food material enters into the food pipe, that food will be pushed downwards by the help of the walls of the food pipe or a esophagus, and the food pushed downwards by the movement of the wall of the pipe. If the food is not accepted by the stomach, so in some cases the food will be not accepted by the stomach, then what happens? It will be comes out in the form of vomit. Have you got understood? Sometimes some cases, if you have already that will be experienced, the vomiting will be happen. Why? Because if the food will be not accepted by our stomach, so in some cases that food will be comes out by as a vomit. So food enters from the buccal cavity into the food pipe. The food pipe is the pipe like structure, starts with the buccal cavity and ends with the stomach. So this pipe like structure will be continuous up to the anus throughout the alimentary canal, but we are taking esophagus or the food pipe that starts with the buccal cavity and ends with the stomach. So the grinded food material from the buccal cavity enters into the food pipe and it will be pushed downwards by the movement of the food pipe, and it will be and now enters into the stomach. So what happens in the stomach? Stomach is a thick walled flat j-shaped bag like structure present in our body. Stomach is a thick walled j-shaped bag like structure present in our body. It is a very widest part in our body. And it receives the food from the food pipe in one end and it opens in other end into the small intestine. So the grinded food material will be receives the food material from the food pipe and in one end, and it will be removes or it will be passes the grinded food material into the small intestine. So this stomach contains some of the juices. The inner lining of the stomach secretes some of the juices called mucus, hydrochloric acid and digestive juices. In the stomach it secretes some juices called inner lining of the stomach secretes mucus. It is a one type of digestive juice, and hydrochloric acid and digestive juices. Here then the question arises, what is the use of these juices? Mucus helps in the protection of lining of the stomach. Have you got understood? It protects the lining of the stomach. Mucus helps in the protection of the lining of the stomach from these acids, HCl and the digestive juices. And hydrochloric acid. So here one question arises in your mind, is it acid is present in our stomach? Yes, the one of the most dangerous acid, the hydrochloric acid, will be present in our stomach. Why it is present? What is the work of the hydrochloric acid? So in sometimes some of the bacteria or some of the infectious agents enters into our food, and that food will be enters into our stomach. In that cases this hydrochloric acid acts on that infectious agents and it will be kills that infectious agents. So therefore hydrochloric acid will be helpful in the kill of infectious agents or the bacteria which are present in the food, harmful bacteria which are present in the food. And also digestive juices. These digestive juices are helpful for to convert the proteins into simple compounds. As you know already, our food material or our food has the sum of the nutrients called carbohydrates, proteins, vitamins, isn't it? So in the stomach, these digestive juices are mixed up with the food material, and the proteins which are present in the food, that can be get converted into simple compounds, because our body cells accept only glucose. Have you got understood? Our body cell accepts only glucose, so it will be get converted into simple compounds. So that will be done by the digestive juices. After onwards, when the some part of the digestion completed in the stomach, and then also the food material in the stomach will be get passed towards the small intestine. Then the food will be enters into the small intestine by the stomach. What happens here? The small intestine is the highly coiled structure. The small intestine is the highly coiled structure, and it has a very long length, about 7.5 meter of long length. So the inner small intestine, it will be about 7.5 meter of long length, and the structure called highly coiled structure, and it receives the secretion from the liver and pancreas. So it receives the secretion. Some of the juices are produced in liver and pancreas. It receives that juices, and also it receives the food material from the stomach. Have you got understood? And these are all pancreatic juices and liver juices, and also the food material coming from the stomach mixed in a small intestine. So next, the food material from the small intestine next enters into the liver. See what happened here. What are the juices will be mixed up in a small intestine? In the liver, it is a reddish brown gland situated in upper part of the abdomen. So the liver, it is a reddish brown colored gland situated in upper part of abdomen at the right side. So it is a reddish brown gland situated in upper part of the abdomen in the right side. The liver will be present. So it is the largest gland, and it secretes a bile juice, and it will be stored in a sac called gallbladder. So this liver secretes a juice called bile juice. It is a very important juice which will be secreted by the liver. What is the use of the bile juice? Bile juice helpful in the digestion of carbohydrates, proteins, fats, and that can be get converted into simple products that will be useful. In that condition, the bile juice will be very helpful. The bile juice converts the food materials, that is the nutrients of the food materials, carbohydrates, proteins, fats, into the simple compounds. So this bile juice will be secreted in a liver, and it will be stored in a sac-like structure. That is sac-like structure, it is nothing but a gallbladder. In gallbladder, the bile juice will be stored. And under one structure here, that is the pancreas. It is a cream colored gland. It will be present in just below the stomach. It is a cream colored gland. It present just below the stomach. So thousands of finger like structures are present in a small intestine. Next, we are going to move about absorption in the small intestine. So up to now we studied about, first one is the digestion, isn't it? Next, it is the grinding, that is a digestion. In the digestion process, next we are going to study about absorption. What is absorption? The inner wall of the small intestine. See here, the inner wall of the small intestine. If you take this is the small intestine, the inner wall of the small intestine has a finger-like structures, and these finger-like structures are called it as a villi. So these villi are increase the surface area for absorption of the food material. See, when the food enters from the buccal cavity into the food pipe, then food pipe will be pushes the food material towards the stomach. Stomach has some juices, and that juices that are nothing but mucus and acid called hydrochloric acid and digestive juices. With the help of the digestive juices, that food material will be converted into simple compounds. In that case also some of the food materials will be not completely digested, therefore that will be enters into the small intestine. But in the small intestine, that food material will be get mixed up with the pancreatic and the liver juices. That liver juices, it is nothing but the bile juice and the pancreatic juices. Using bile juice and the pancreatic juices, the remaining food material will be get digested, and that can be get converted into simple compounds. The food material, it is a complex compound. When it is mixed up with these juices, that will be get digested and it will be get converted into simple compounds. So that simple compounds, when they are enters into the small intestine. In the small intestine, small finger like structures are present. So when the food enters here, it will be goes like this, isn't it? It will be goes like this. So these finger like structures are called it as a villi, and these villi are increases the surface area for absorption of the food material in the small intestine. These villi, in the villi cells, it has a thin and a small blood vessels. These villi has thin and a small blood vessels. These thin and small blood vessels absorbs the food material, and that will be mixed up with the blood cells and will be transported towards all the cells, all the organs of our body. Here, that with the in the villi has a small blood vessels. That blood vessels absorbs the food materials, and that will be mixed up with the blood cells and transported with using the blood towards all the parts of our body, all the cells of our body, and this process is called it as a assimilation. So one it is absorption, another one it is assimilation. Assimilation done by the villi and by using the blood. I got understood. By using the blood, the more important compounds, that is food materials, will be transported towards all parts of the body. That process it is called it as a assimilation. So in the cells, so now the food components, the simpler food components reaches into all cells of our body. So what happens in the cell body? In the cells, that simple compounds, that is nothing but the glucose. The simple component is nothing but the glucose. In the presence of oxygen, that glucose will be divided, will be break down into carbon dioxide, water and energy. What happens in the all cells of our body? When the food components, simple food components from the blood reaches to our cells, in the cell, in the presence of the oxygen, that food material will be break down into the food material. It is nothing but glucose. Glucose will be break down into carbon dioxide, water, and it releases some energy. That energy what we are going to use now. So after onwards, the undigested food from the small intestine. So some of the food will be digested here, but also some of the undigested, that is the waste food is present. That undigested and unabsorbed food enters into the large intestine. After small intestine, the food enters into the large intestine. So large intestine, it is a wider than the small intestine and a shorter than the small intestine. It is a wider. It's wider than the small intestine and very shorter than the small intestine, and the length of this large intestine is about 1.5 meter. So listen here, the length of the small intestine is about 7.5 meter long, but the length of the large intestine is about 1.5 meter long. So what happens in the large intestine? The unabsorbed and undigested food material, when enters into the large intestine, in the large intestine from the food material, the large intestine absorbs some of the salts and water present in that unabsorbed food. What happens here? In a large intestine, from the food, the large intestine absorbs some of the salts and water which is present in the unabsorbed and undigested food, and remaining waste passes into the rectum. The remaining waste in the large intestine, the remaining waste will be passes into the rectum, and that waste will be removed by the removed through the structure called anus, and the process of removal of waste products from the anus, it is called as a egestion. Have you got understood? We studied some of the one by one steps here in the digestion of food in a human beings. First step, it is a egestion, second one is a digestion, third one is absorption, fourth one is assimilation, and last one is egestion. So when the food enters into our body by the process of egestion, with the help of the tooth and some of the glands present in our mouth, and also with the help of the tongue, we are going to grind the food material, and that food material next will be enters into the food pipe, or it is called as a esophagus. In the esophagus, the food will be pushed downwards. I got understood? It is the food will be pushed downwards by the help of the food pipe, the walls of the food pipe. And next, the food will be enters into the stomach. Stomach secretes some of the juices called mucus, hydrochloric acid, and digestive juices. So here mucus, it is helpful. It will be protects the inner lining of the stomach, and hydrochloric acid will kills the bacteria, harmful bacteria or harmful particles which comes with the food material, and the digestive juices which will be helpful to convert the proteins into simple compounds. Then the food from the stomach will enters into the small intestine. The small intestine, it is a highly coil-like structure, and it is about 7.5 meter long in length, and it receives the secretion from liver and the pancreas. The small intestine receives some of the secretions from liver and pancreas. In the small intestine, the partially digested food material mixed up with the liver and pancreatic juices, and in that process, the partially digested food material will be again digested by using the pancreatic and liver juices. Here liver secretes the bile juice, and that bile juice will be stored in a sac like structure called gallbladder, and also by using a pancreatic juice and a liver juice, the undigested or partially digested food material will be further on digestion. So after onwards, the food material will passes through along the small intestine, the coil-like structure. In the small intestine, some of the finger-like structures are present on the surface of the inner surface of the small intestine. That finger-like structures are called as a villi, and these villi will helpful for it will be increases the surface area of absorption of the food material, and this villi has small blood vessels. These blood vessels will be absorbs the food material. Have you got understood? It absorbs the food materials and will be transported towards all cells of our body by using the blood cells. When the food simple compounds enters into our cells, in the cells, the food material, that is nothing but glucose, in the presence of oxygen, break down into carbon dioxide, water, and energy. That energy will be utilized by us to do any work. So all the food material, it not be digested completely. Some of the waste will be remains, that is nothing but undigested and unabsorbed food material which is present in a small intestine. Then next will be enters into the large intestine. Large intestine, it is somewhat wider than the small intestine and somewhat shorter than the small intestine. It is about having its length about 1.5 meter. So in this large intestine, the unabsorbed and undigested food material will be enters into the large intestine. In the large intestine, from the unabsorbed food material, it absorbs the water and some salts, and then in the large intestine, that waste product will be passes through the rectum. After rectum, the waste material will be removed by the structure called anus, and the process of removal of this waste material from the anus, it is called as a egestion. Have you got understood? This is all about the digestion of the food materials or of digestion in human beings. But the digestion of the animals is somewhat different, because we are going to eat the food products, the plant products, we are going to eat the food, but in the animals, they are not going to eat the food material, they are going to eat some of the green plants, or they are going to eat grass. I got understood. So there is somewhat different, is there, the digestion process is somewhat different, we can study. Okay, now see here, we studied about the digestion of food material in the human beings, but the digestion in the animals is very different. Why? Because the animals are going to eat the grass. Grass is mainly made up of a cellulose. So you have to remember, any animals including human doesn't has the capacity to digest the cellulose. Have got understood? So what happens in here digestion, but how the cellulose will be digested in the animals here. If you see clearly the digestion of the food materials of the eating of the grass in the such animals called cow, buffalo. So first they are going to eat very fastly the grass or the green plants, and after onwards, when the food is not present, they are going to chew some food material in their mouth. But where the food come from, when the food is not present, then that case also the animals are going to chew some food material, but that food material comes from where? So now study in the digestion of animals, how they are going to digest that food material. The animals first, they are going to intake the food material very fastly, and that food material will be called as the partially digested food material, and that partially digested food material will be stored in a structure called a rumen. This rumen is a very specialized structure, comes in some animals like buffalo, cow, isn't it? So in that rumen, the partially digested food material will be stored. That partially stored food material is called as a curd. Have you got understood? The food material which will be stored in the rumen, it is called as a curd. So after the sometimes that partially digested or the partially grinded food material will be comes back into the mouth, that is called as the curd. That curd will be again digested completely, or will be grinded completely in the mouth or by the chewing of that food material by the animals. Have you got understood? So the special structure which stores the partially digested food material, it is called as a rumen, and the digestion of that partially digested food material taking back from the rumen, it is called as the rumination. Have you got understood it? That process, it is called as a rumination. And the animals which has the rumens and which has the rumination process, that are called as a ruminants. Have you got understood? What are ruminants here? The animals which has the rumen, the special structure called a rumen, and the animals which has the rumination process, that animals are called as a ruminants. You have to see here the cellulose which will come from the grass. They are going to eat directly the green products or the green plants or the grasses. Grass is rich in cellulose. It will be not digested by the animals also. But how it is going to be digested in the animals, in the body of the animals, in the stomach of the animals, it contains some of the bacteria that are not present in the human bodies. That bacteria are helpful to convert that cellulose into simple compounds. After onwards, as usual, as we study, the digestion process will be happens in human beings. In that same process will be continues in the animal body also. But the difference is here, the animals are going to take the cellulose directly as a food material. That cellulose food material will be digested by some bacteria, some very important bacteria that only present in the animal bodies. After onwards, that food material will be again digested as same process as in the human beings. Have you got understood? But one question arises here. Some of the organisms doesn't has a very specialized structures called a mouth, and isn't it rumen, and our small intestine, large intestine, the structure, some of the microorganisms like amoeba, it only made up of a single cell. But how can it is going to be digest the food material? See here, amoeba has the structure called a pseudopodia. It is the locomotory structure of the amoeba. The amoeba uses that locomotory structure and covers the food material which comes towards its surface. Have you got understood? I am considering here it is an amoeba. This is the pseudopod. It is called it as the pseudopodia. It is a locomotory organ. Have you got understood? So using this, if the food enters here, it will covers step by step like this. It covers step by step like this and take the food material into the cell. And take the food material into the cell. Its cell has one food vacuole. In the food vacuole, some of the digestive juices, some of the organs are present. Using that organs, that food will be digested here, and remove the waste product which present in the amoeba will be removed by this pseudopodia at the outer surface of the amoeba. So this is all about the digestion in animals, isn't it? So this completes your another one most important chapter, nutrition in animals. So in the next class we are going to study about your new chapter. Thank you.